Amazing. And that's our topic for today, but we'll get more into that after a little brief outline on the Center of Love, a place where like-minded, like-hearted people meet openly to share and promote spiritual values of wisdom and in an inclusive environment. So everyone is welcome. Your perspective is welcome. And we're all here to learn from each other, each of us leading in our own way. So making love known as a tangible thing in this world. So I'd like to just quote novelist. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. He was a German philosopher. He said, "The heart is the key to the world and life, the heart through which love flows." So drawing on wisdom from past teachers and present teachers, it's all welcome here, and interpreting it ourselves and integrating that what resonates. Such a beautiful environment. One phrase today that stood out to me that I wanted to share with you, and a new interpretation of, is the meek shall inherit the earth. And perhaps religion had misinterpreted that, as we're learning. A lot of people misinterpreted things, and there's new interpretations. And what resonated for me was the teachable. May we all be meek in the sense of teachable. Be honest where we're at, open to learn, and willing to integrate it for a better world, and ask, is there more love? Yeah. And from Marcus Aurelius, another one of my favorites, it's not death that we should fear, but that we might never begin to live. Now, perhaps once we know our power, because we've learned from other wise teachers from the past and those that are sharing with us today, we can integrate what we need and open our hearts and share more love, which is our purpose here today. And on that note, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Tara Wild, a woman, which you can never really box in what a woman does, as a mother, author, EFT practitioner, an incredible human doing good things in the world, here to teach us all about forgiveness. And so on that note, Tara. Good morning. Does that sound okay? Okay, I need some eyeballs here. Thank you, Tracy, for that beautiful introduction. Also, thank you, Linda, for the underpainting of what is about to become our Center of Love masterpiece. So beautiful. Yeah, thanks for the lovely introduction, Tracy. I am all of those things. So many things we are, hey? And I'm so grateful this morning to be here. I will preface, this is not my first time speaking here. I speak publicly quite a lot, but in this particular space, I feel so almost overwhelmed at times with the energy of people who come to choose to be together in this kind of space. And so I will let you know that as I speak, sometimes I feel emotional in this space, even though I can deliver some of this information, which is quite personal to me, easily on a podcast or something like that. There's something about this space that makes me want to swear sometimes, and it makes me want to cry sometimes. So I'm just going to preface with that. Okay. And so, I think I just, oh, there we go. I got it. Okay. So thanks for joining us today. Thank you to the new people who are joining us today. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. I consider it to be my secret weapon in this lifetime, and it is the powerful practice of forgiveness. We often hear people reference forgiveness as an act, and it is an act. And it's an act that, in my opinion and in my experience, needs to be repeated again and again and again for many different circumstances and many different people. Through our lifetime, we feel hurt and challenged so often, don't we? And forgiveness has really become my superpower. And so many of the people in this room know my big T trauma, my family's experience of loss. To clean my glasses a little. My family's experience of loss
And, it's a story that has defined me for a period of time and no longer does. But the big T trauma that happened for me and my family is what brought me to Vancouver Island ultimately, and what landed me here at the Center of Love, because my big T trauma came with a massive spiritual awakening, which is one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given. And so to feel the polarity of a big, massive trauma or tragedy in one's life, and to also be able to view it as one of the greatest gifts, has really come to me through my practice of forgiveness. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. For those of you who don't know my story, I am going to catch you up. Apologies to the people who've heard this more than enough times. In 2020, my husband, who was a filmmaker in Vancouver, was filming one of the first greenlit shows in Vancouver post-pandemic. Well, we were still in the pandemic, I guess, but it was one of the first shows to get started, and he was responsible to make it happen with all the new protocols. Needless to say, COVID broke out on the set. He got it. They shut down the show for a period of time, and it was his job to get it up and running. And in those days, we were all following rules around it. Although we weren't afraid of the virus, we were all following the rules. And in an effort to get our kids back into school and me back to work and all the things, we followed the rules and we quarantined on 2 different levels of our house. So he was upstairs alone, just chatting upstairs and downstairs with me, and me and the kids were on the main floor of the house. And after about a week, it was getting really old. He was trying to get his show on the road, and like there's all these new protocols, like how do you feed 200 people in an hour when they have to be, miles apart at a buffet? Like it just wasn't going to work, And so it was frustrating for him, but he also wasn't a person who got super stressed. But I could see like he needed a change of scenery because he'd been kind of locked away up there. And I suggested he grab a change of scenery, and I suggested he go out and go for a walk, or just get out of the house, or just go do something one morning. And so on September 24th, 2020, he left the house at 9:30 in the morning. I didn't know where he went, and he never came back. So the only reason that I like to retell this story is to set the stage for the unthinkable things that happen in our lives that we can forgive. And for those of you who are new, it took about 9 days for them to find his car. So a search didn't start very quickly. And his car was found up in Squamish. We lived in Vancouver at the time. So his car was found up in Squamish, and he had clearly gone into the woods for a bit of fresh air, something like that. Hi, welcome. And no trace of him has ever been found. It was about 9 days before we could really start a actual search and rescue. So, just like let that land for a second. I know I told many of you this story before, but just like let that land for a second about what that might have felt like. Only because I'm so grateful the story doesn't define me anymore, but it does inform the way I move through the world. And it informed my understanding of the importance of the practice of forgiveness. So in spaces like this, it's important to set the stage, right? Because we want to, I use this story to sort of amplify the experience. And I did write a book about it, which many of you have read. But when I wrote it and I sort of focused on what I wanted to cover in a book, because there was so much to talk about, I ended up dedicating a whole quarter of the book to my favorite topics, which are forgiveness and gratitude. And I don't believe that you can have one without the other. I think forgiveness brings us to the experience of gratitude. And for me, gratitude is always the goal. And so forgiveness, I knew quickly, was going to become necessary if I was going to make it through and live a life that wasn't completely surrounded in just constant suffering and grief. I understood grief was going to be there forever. I didn't want to suffer, and I didn't want my kids to suffer. So I started diving into how can I clear this out of my body, right? And so I am going to read to you part of the book, which is just the reflections, because this is what I would have written if I was going to write a talk on this. So of course, the single most important thing for me when telling my kids that their dad was presumably deceased. We were still waiting to find out what was actually happening at the time. I wanted to minimize the trauma that they were going to feel and that they would carry through childhood and beyond, right? Because I had trauma in my childhood, as most of us do. And I didn't start to gain tools to deal with that until I was well into my 40s. I would say almost until this trauma happened. And I was 47 when this happened. So I believe it's worth the effort and absolutely possible to work hard to move through the trauma. I can't begin to list all of the people in history who've lived through unthinkable events, accidents, and loss, and still go on to tell their stories from a place of gratitude. Of course, it takes grace, time, and tools to let go of the wound and carry forward with only the wisdom, but it is possible. It's needlessly painful for us to carry the burden of things that have been inflicted upon us, either at the hands of others or by way of random events that end tragically. I didn't want my kids to lug this devastation around for life. I wanted a bright, beautiful future for them, filled with as much joy as possible, as often as possible, as soon as possible. I also knew it was important not to attempt to bypass the grief as much as I wished we could have. The only way to heal was going to be through feeling our feelings and by eventually forgiving the experience fully, plain and simple, also painful and complicated. I can't speak from a place of lived experience with things like sexual abuse and devastating personal health diagnoses. Though endless discussions on the topic of trauma, I've connected with and conversed with intimately many people who've survived those type of travesties. And I've learned that while there are no two experiences that are the same, there are clear parallels that can be drawn between any two stories of loss and trauma. I'll never minimize the atrocity of the damage that's caused when one wounded human afflicts their pain on another. I do, however, believe it's possible with the right guidance, potentially professional support, and a desire to heal to overcome the worst of the worst. I've seen myself and my kids overcome what feels like the worst to us. And after watching so many other people navigate their personal worsts, I do feel prepared to speak about the universal feelings that come from loss of any kind and the impact that beginning to practice forgiveness can have on that. You know, the loss of my husband and the only other parent of my children, loss of the picture perfect life we anticipated for our kids, you know, loss of the perfect life that we anticipated for our son Miller when he was born with a brain injury, loss of friends to addiction, loss of our freedoms when the world was disrupted by a virus and everything that ensued there. All of these things have occurred in my life, and they've all brought similar emotions like anxiety, sadness, loneliness, and anger. These emotions have required acknowledgement and acceptance to get past them. And thankfully, for the most part, I've been able to unpack most of that. I wanted the emotional load to be lighter for my kids in this experience, and so I made it my full-time job to stay present for them. And I tried to stay open to questions and big emotional responses. And I tried to model forgiveness wherever possible in an effort to break free from the burden of this unwelcome experience. Forgiveness is hard work, but it works well. So I've had to forgive all the people and factors involved in the events that led up to Darcy's departure. This included the film producers who were pressuring him to get that film up and running during a pandemic, a government that was mandating him into solitude, the cell phone company that took days to get back to us with an indication of where he maybe last used his phone. I had to forgive the fact that his modern was somehow not equipped with a simple tracking device, that his phone didn't have the eye finder thing on it on that day for whatever reason. I've had to forgive the police who were so slow to take action when I reported Darcy missing. I've had to forgive Darcy himself for going out that day without being clear about where he was headed. He didn't really have a plan. I've had to forgive him for not being clear-headed when he took whatever step he took that took his life. I've had to forgive myself for suggesting that he went out that day and get a change of scenery. And I've had to forgive God and the universe and all the unseen forces that were at play that created that perfect storm that day. There's so many layers to it, but the bottom line is until we can forgive our circumstances and everyone involved, we stay shackled to the pain forever. Choosing forgiveness instead of blame or guilt is how I set my own heart free. This freedom is what allowed me the capacity to travel through the unbearable territory of grief that we had to go through. So I can't emphasize enough that practicing forgiveness is for the purpose of freeing ourselves. It's not for letting others off the hook for unthinkable acts they may have committed. People do hard, terrible things. And it doesn't mean that we need to let them off the hook. Forgiveness doesn't mean we have to like what happened. I don't like that Darcy died so young, and you don't have to like what happened to you either. Forgiveness doesn't mean we have to be in contact with the people that hurt us either. Life's way too short to engage in relationships that aren't built from love and reciprocity. We just need to love ourselves enough to cut the cords that bind us to our pain by energetically setting those souls and those experiences free. We must give ourselves the gift of relief that comes when we find a way to glean a little bit of wisdom or knowledge from our traumatic experiences and carry it forward through our lives with only the wisdom and not that pure pain that we feel before we forgive. Please know that this ability to forgive is not some kind of superpower. It's not some elite or innate capacity for forgiveness that's only a chosen few are born with, not at all. Forgiveness is a learned practice that takes some effort and is available to all of us. And there are so many amazing resources to help us forgive. I often use the traditional Hawaiian ho'oponopono prayer as the template for writing forgiveness letters to people in situations, which I later bless and release by destroying the pages with fire and water. And I'm going to share that practice with you today. And I'm going to give you something to take home so that you can look at it and feel how powerful that can be if you want to try it. I also practice the art of radical forgiveness as described in the book by the same name by Colin Tipping. If you've never read it, pick it up, read it, do it, practice it. It will change your life. So beautiful. Those are just two of my favorites. And I use EFT tapping, as Tracy mentioned, to clear the angst from my body around certain experiences. And that always leads me to a deeper understanding of who and what needs to be forgiven, because we're constantly running into things that we need to be letting go of. It can be something so tiny, right? But if it's in here, we're shackled. So this ability to achieve forgiveness is absolutely necessary if we want to live our lives in gratitude, and I do. True gratitude is the best feeling ever and is vastly different from feeling thankful. Thankful feels like a recognition of the things we have in our lives that make us feel safe and help us enjoy our earthly existence. For example, I feel thankful for fresh water in my beautiful home, friendly neighbors, affordable education, communities like this, education for my kids, access to healthcare, tacos, and coffee. Especially thankful for coffee. And it's great, but thankfulness is also surface level. Gratitude, on the other hand, permeates ourselves and feels like deep appreciation for our lives. Appreciation for the big universal beauty that surrounds us, no matter what terrible things are occurring globally or in our personal lives. Gratitude is being called to take a moment to soak up the warm rays of sunshine with closed eyes and an open heart, even on the hardest days when the world feels like it's crumbling. Gratitude makes sure you can find peace, you can feel peaceful for just a moment amid that chaos. Gratitude feels like experiencing a genuine desire to be quiet and appreciate the symmetry of a flower in nature or the myriad shades of green that we see in the forest. Gratitude feels like sitting peacefully with the perfectly still surface of a lake as it reflects your own perfection back to you. Gratitude won't let you waste a minute or miss that experience of seeing your own beauty in nature's mirror. Gratitude fills you up to overflowing when you're otherwise empty. And it feels like sitting devastated on your couch, waiting for your missing husband to answer your millionth call when 3 little birds pitch by the doorstep and you're briefly overcome by a feeling in your heart that every little thing is going to be all right. And I can honestly say that I felt that way in that moment because I was already beginning my practice of forgiveness. I was already landing into some level of acceptance. And I believe that was a God-given experience. But I also believe that if we practice forgiveness and we take responsibility to let go of what's burdening us, we can feel that level of beauty, even in the most difficult times. Gratitude is divine. These descriptions might sound grandiose, but anyone who's felt true gratitude knows that it's absolutely massive. For a moment, it will squash fear and leave no room for uncertainty in your body, mind, or soul. It's the perfect blend of love, trust, faith, and freedom, and it only comes when we're able to forgive our circumstances. The more we practice forgiveness, the more gratitude we're capable of experiencing. And this is what's seen my kids and I through the darkest hours to where we are now, which is mostly in the light. And of course, we have to continue to practice, because a practice is a practice like anything. To me, forgiveness is like brushing your teeth, you know? You don't want to walk around with the plaque, right? Like really and truly, we don't. And so, you know, your ears might have perked up when I mentioned the Ho'oponopono prayer. I know many people here were involved in a beautiful ceremony yesterday at the Dome in Machosen, and this is what they were celebrating in ceremony, was the powerful gift of the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is a traditional Hawaiian piece. But essentially, the way that I use it for forgiveness is I use it to prompt me to write a letter to the person or the circumstance that I want to forgive. And so I literally put pen to paper and I use the prompts. And the prompts of the Ho'oponopono prayer are simply this: I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. And I start my letter, dear credit card company that wouldn't get back to me about if my husband had used the credit card, dear police that didn't, you know, take me seriously when I suggested that maybe this fit, capable husband of mine, something may have happened to him. You know, I write these to all parts of any circumstance that I'm dealing with. And I begin, dear whatever, and it might be dear person. You know, I've written these letters to my siblings and parents and all of that. And then I use the prompt. So I'm sorry that I was unable to emphasize the severity of the situation that I was trying to address. And maybe, you know, I just sort of rewrite, and then I go to please forgive me. And then I go to thank you. Thank you for the effort that you did make to help find my husband. I do understand that this experience is meant for me, and I'm thankful for the role that you played in it, the support that you offered, and the attempt to bring around a desired outcome. And then lastly, I love you. I love you for the work that you do in this world to help people. I love you for the effort that you made. And then I just sign it, love, Tara. And then I write the same letter to myself about the same sort of circumstance. So I did bring a template for you. Ollie kindly printed it out for you so that you could see what it actually looks like and how to do it. And so what I do is I write it all down, and it could be 2 sentences for each prompt, or it could be, sometimes my letters are 10 pages long, you know, it depends how much I have to say. And to be honest, sometimes you want to write things like, I'm sorry, you're such an asshole. You know, you just do. But that's not really what it's about. It's about setting your heart free. And so it's about really trying to dig deep to find the parts of the experience that you can feel grateful for. And sometimes those things are minimal. And sometimes when you allow yourself to sit down and start writing about it, you'll find that there's many gifts that come from these experiences. And then we destroy the letter. I have a little cauldron in my backyard. I like to burn stuff a lot. If I want to, I can also drown it, rip it up, just get rid of it. And so when we destroy the letters, that's when the energetic shift occurs. We're letting it go. And it may be a minute shift, and it may be a massive shift, but you will feel a change that happens. And if it's minute, you might need to write that letter many, many times to the same person or the same situation, the same experience. But I guarantee that lightness will be created. And this is where it becomes a true practice, peeling back the layers and writing again and again until we feel completely free of the weight of the experience. You'll feel a distinct sense of spaciousness. And so at that point, when you feel the spaciousness, it's really important to call in what you want to fill the space. And so this is the universal law of vacuum. As soon as you create space, universe wants to fill it. And if it will fill it with more of the same, if we don't say what we want. So for me, when I destroy my Ho'oponopono forgiveness letters, then I sit for a moment and I say, I am available for peaceful interactions, big, easy love, financial freedom, time with my kids, exquisite relationships with my friends, exceptional relationships with my children, peaceful interactions and peace and ease in my day today. That's it. Just say what you want and bring it in. But once you let go of that deep, deep burden, it just opens up a lot of space for beauty. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the powerful practice of forgiveness. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand you guys out just basically a description of what I just described for the Ho'oponopono prayer. So you can just take it with you today and have it, share it with other people. It's so simple and so effective. Do you guys want to pass them out? Thanks. Adore you. Thank you for listening.